activity, I will show you how to make some clay tree ring prints. And these prints will resemble the growth rings on a tree. So just like this example, which is a swamp maple, we have some tree rings, and each tree ring, a tree gets one new tree ring for every year that it is growing or that it is living. And these rings tell a story about what the tree has withstood, what it's overcome, what has happened while it's alive. And today in the prints that we create, we'll tell a little bit about our own story and what we have witnessed and been through and overcome as well. I encourage you to have a conversation with your family and your friends about things that have happened while you were alive, whether that's family events or national events or even global events. Maybe you went through a hurricane, or you made a move with your family, or perhaps you lost a tooth or won a swim race, and all of these are important events that have happened to you. To get started, let's talk about our supplies. We're going to be making, like I said, the tree ring prints, which will look a little bit like this, not exactly like mine, it'll look like yours. But these tree ring prints are made with a printing block that's constructed out of cardboard and oil-based clay. So some supplies that are pretty easy to find in this area. And also, if you have not received a supply kit from the library, I'll follow up here with a complete list of supplies. Hi, Kathryn again. Before we cover our supplies, I want to give everyone a close-up look at these swamp maple slices. These have been rough cut and will be included in your supply kits. I'm just going to get a little closer so that you can see all these concentric growth rings. And concentric just means one inside the other inside the other. The center point here is the first year of growth, when the tree was very tiny. The next ring out is its second year of growth. Counting the rings will tell you how old a tree is. What else can this tree tell us about its life? The width and shape of each ring indicate climate conditions, droughts and floods, fires, and even pest and critter damage. In this slice, I can see one ring that is wider than all the rest. This ring was a year with lots of rain and extra growth. Now let's get those supplies ready for creating our own tree ring timelines. For supplies, you will need a cardboard circle, roughly 4 to 5 inches in diameter. This one is a cardboard coaster, but if you have some cardboard around that you'd like to use, look for some that is a little bit rough or textured so that the oil clay has something to grab onto, as opposed to a cardboard that's very smooth. So we're looking for a little bit fibrous or rough. Okay. Also, we need a piece of tagboard or similar disposable surface for rolling out the oil clay onto. This will keep any residue, oily residue, from getting onto the surface of our workspace. We also need a disposable plate and a disposable spoon for our paint. And we'll need some paper to print onto. So for paper, we'll have in our kit some cardstock paper, which is thick and also quite dense and smooth. We'll also have some mixed media paper, which is also thick but is textured. And we'll give both of those a try for our printmaking process. And we'll need some oil clay. And here I have just a stick of oil clay, modeling clay, and it is AP non-toxic. That means it's safe for children. So we always want to be aware that our art supplies are safe for children or for whoever is using it. We'll also need some paint. So for paint, I've included in the kit some Colorations Green Simply Washable Tempera paint. And this paint is a little bit on the thick side. It's here in a Ziploc, and I'll show you how to open that in a little bit. And this tempera paint is a little bit on the thick side. So if you're looking for paint at the store to complete this project with, Just be looking for something that again is safe for children, non-toxic, and also a little bit on the thicker side. Okay. And we'll need a pen. I have a pen here that's one of my favorites, a black pen, but also you could use a colorful pen. So if you have a favorite pen or writing utensil at home, I have this turquoise one. That's another cool one that I like. So you can set that aside for this project. And you'll also need a pair of scissors. Excellent. You can pause the video while you gather your supplies. Step 1, creating the printing block. Our first step is to create our printing block, which is a textured surface that will hold the paint for our print. This printmaking process is a lot like stamping. We will create an object similar to a stamp to press into the paint and then onto the paper, leaving behind a colorful set of lines. In my example, I will create 5 tree rings. For each ring, I will take a small piece of clay, a bit larger than a marble, and I will roll it into a long snake with my fingers. As soon as you've got it into a small oval or circle about the size of a marble, you can roll it into a snake, into a long string of clay by working your way from the center outwards with your fingers. So just rolling this clay back and forth as you move your fingers to the outside, to either side. And for this project, you do need these snakes to be pretty thin, nice and thin like spaghetti. So you're going to want to really move those fingers outwards. And if you get a small area that isn't as thick as the others, or that is too thick in one area, you can just work that area a little bit more to even that out, and so that your string doesn't fall apart. All right, this one's looking pretty good. And when you've got as many strands made as you have for years in your life, then you're going to be ready to assemble your printing block. So you're going to take your circle, and this will be the surface, the backer for your printing block. And you're going to start with just a dot. So you do need one more thing, and that is a small dot for the center point of your tree rings. And that is the beginning. That is the start. Okay? And for your rings surrounding that, you can simply press down on the end of one of your strands of clay and make this next ring, which represents the next year of your life, around that initial dot, and tear off the extra clay. And then you're going to get this to stick down to your cardboard disc just by pressing gently with your fingers. And each ring does not have to be a perfect circle. It can be a fun shape like this one. And then you're going to continue this on. I can use the rest of this strand, or I can use another strand if I want to. But I'm going to do 5 in total for this example. Okay, so now that I have my 5 rings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the dot counts as 1 ring, and I've accounted for 5 years in this tree ring's growth, I'm going to press this printing block upside down onto one of my pieces of cardstock, one of my pieces of white paper. And I'm going to give it a light rubbing on the back, not too hard. But what I'm trying to do is to make sure that all of those pieces of clay really stick to the cardboard, and also that they flatten out a little bit. Then I'm going to lift the whole thing up, paper and all, flip it over, and I'm going to peel the paper off the clay. Okay? And what I'm looking for now is to make sure that these tops of these pieces of clay have become flattened so that they have a nice printmaking surface. And if that hasn't happened yet, that's okay. I can try this again, and I can press down with a little more pressure this time to make sure that every one of those pink pieces of clay is nice and flattened out so that it has a smooth printing surface to hold our paint. There we go. And again, we'll lift the whole thing up and peel the paper back. And that's starting to look pretty good. So I'm going to get this ready for printing by adding paint to my paper plate. Step 2, printing with paint. In our second step, we will print our tree rings using green tempera paint. Our paint is made by the Colorations brand and meets ASTM non-toxic standards. I've packaged a little bit of the paint into a Ziploc bag for you, and this is a great way to open it. Have a grown-up help by taking the inside bag of paint out of the outside bag. And by pushing all the paint away from one corner of the bag. So you want to squeeze that paint backwards so that it's not very close to the corner of the bag. Just like this. The next step is to take your scissors and over your plate, make a cut diagonally through that corner of the bag. And you can just get rid of that corner piece. And then you're going to take this paint and squeeze about 1/3 to 1/2 of it out onto your plate. So you're looking to have about that much paint to start on your plate. And you should have received several plates, so if this doesn't go as planned, you've got a second shot at it. And also, this piece of tagboard that we use for rolling out the clay will make a great backer for our printmaking area to keep some of the paint off of our work surface. All right, now that we have our paint on our paper plate, our next step is to use our disposable spoon to smear the paint in a circle. So we're basically just trying to spread this out into a thin layer that's about the size and shape of our printing block. So we're going to make a big circle with our paint that is the same size or just slightly larger than our 4-inch cardboard circle. So that's looking pretty good. Get it nice and smoothed out. So it's kind of equally distributed in that circular area. Okay, great. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our printing block and we're going to tip it upside down into the paint, just like a stamp. So we're going to press that down, and you can even take it and do a little swirl with it if you want to make sure you've got ink on all the surfaces. You can slide it around a little bit. And I'm going to peel that up and show you what it looks like. So before you print, you can take a good look at your printing block and see whether the paint has hit all the surfaces of the clay. And you can see that there's a few spots that were low-lying, these bright pink areas, that the paint has not touched. So those aren't going to print. And that's okay, but that's the reason why we originally pressed this down onto a piece of paper, to try to flatten those surfaces, make sure that they're going to have contact with the paint. So now we're going to take this and we're going to do what's called registering the printing block. And that just means lining it up wherever we'd like it to be on our printmaking paper, which in this case is some of our white cardstock. So I'm going to set this to one end of the page and I'm going to plop that printing block down, and then I'm going to press it with my hands and rub the back of it. And rubbing the back of it is important because that actually makes sure that that the surface of all those little pieces of clay are coming in contact now with this white paper so that the print is made. So I'm giving that a good surface rub on the back. And then we're going to peel it off. Actually, there's one more step. If you feel that perhaps your clay print is not getting enough contact with the white paper, you can flip the printing block over, press on this side and rub on this side, which will give extra contact to those coils of clay so that the paper is really pressing against them and getting a really good imprint. And you can start to even see that paint and those rings through the paper a little bit. And when you're ready to complete the print, you're just going to peel the paper off of the printing block like this. And that is our first tree ring print. And you can see we have some paint for the dot that was the center. We can see the second ring, the third ring, the fourth ring, and the fifth ring. And we'll let this dry for just a little bit. Step 3. Add your story. Now it's time to add some interesting information about the history of your life. What year were you born? What has been your favorite birthday? Did you ever move to a new home or have a baby brother or sister? Did you break your arm, go on a trip? Have a grown-up help you record these events on the year that they happened. Remember, the center dot is the beginning, and the outside circle is the year you are in right now. In my example, I was born in 2015. Then, a year later, I had a baby sister born. You don't have to write something on every year, or you might write several items on one special year. Write or have a grown-up write what is important to you. Step 4. Sign and frame it. Finally, it's time to sign and frame these amazing histories. Signing is important so that in the future, people know whose story this was. Have an adult help you get that paper behind glass in your frame and place it somewhere that's special to you. Thank you for joining me for Clay Tree Ring Prints with Kathryn, and stop back soon for more arts programming with the Otis Library.